In this present crisis, government is not the solution to our problem. Government is the problem.
Do you want the whole truth?
I don't think you're ready.
Governments don't control things. A government can't control the economy without controlling people.
It's Crane Durham's Nothing But Truth.
Welcome back. Crane Durham's Nothing But Truth, probably on AFR Talk. I was going to go with something else this segment, but I felt the Lord put it on my heart, this being 9/11 and what happened on 2001 and what happened on 9/11 2012. And I just can't let this go. We're going to be joined by Ryan Morrow. We'll talk about Syria. He's going to respond to Rand Paul's remarks and response last night. So we'll get to that with Ryan Morrow, worldthreats.com, as well as the national security analyst for the Clarion Project, clarionproject.org. Now, I'm asking you just to hear this without responding for a moment. And this is not a sermon by any means. I say this as someone who is a fellow American. Today is a very hard day for a lot of Americans, and it should be. On occasion, I will go through the 9/11 footage and I'll look for certain things because this fundamentally changed America's response to what was happening for the last 30 years, and an enemy that has been an enemy of freedom for centuries. So recognizing that and recognizing what took place and how the debate has been framed, I think the debate has been framed very irresponsibly because there's a lot to it. Well, thank you, Captain Obvious. When President Obama now asks us to feel the pain of the children, seeing those images of children who have been gassed, no doubt it's sick, it's deplorable, it's awful, and it makes us all sick to our stomachs and brings tears to our eyes. But where that outrage, I would be just as outraged as kids and innocents are being slaughtered in other ways, like 100,000 of them. I would also be outraged if we knew the ideology that was fomenting and producing this, and the states, nation states that were fomenting this, chief fomenter being Saudi Arabia of Wahhabism. We also have Pakistan in the mix. They have nuclear weapons. And Iran, of course. And then when somebody says, okay, we've been attacked, and after the attack, everybody says, why didn't you connect the dots? Why didn't you do something? Because that's the response. How dare you? I've talked about flashpoints in history. I mean, World Trade Center 1. We go back to 83 in Lebanon. We have to understand this is not new. The way we respond to it is new. And I think I welcome the response that we are taking since post-2001 in the sense of recognizing that we're at war. But I also look at how the media is portraying this, how people are taking it and saying, you know, war's the enemy. War's not the enemy, folks. The enemy's the enemy. War, yeah. Last resort, absolutely. Believe in the just war doctrine? You betcha. But war's not the enemy. And when we look at what's in the world, how do we pick and choose? Well, it's got to be of our vital national security interest to put American lives on the line, yeah. But that doesn't mean we can't do a lot of other things. We had the Laxalt doctrine during the Cold War, where we would work and push dictators to move to democratic reforms and initiate that. We have the Millennium Fund and other ways to advance liberty, because that's what this is about, advancing freedom. But when we have revisionist history at the time, it's deeply frustrating to look back at Iraq and say, that was a failure, that was a mistake. That's an insult. That characterization is an insult to history. Saying Bush lied, people died, that's an insult to history and the legacy. And it also yields to people saying, look, I'll do everything but military force. We'll never, no, we don't want that. We don't want an Iraq. We don't want another Afghanistan. Well, as we sit back and say, okay, you don't want another Iraq, another Afghanistan, what does that really mean? Because inevitably we're going to have to confront the enemy. Do we want to confront them when they're stronger or weaker? And there are many ways to do that comprehensively. Not invade, and by the way, it's not about the choice between invade and do nothing, which is an asinine characterization, but one that in the cartoonish world of politics that we live in, those are the options. So first, President Bush in 2008 responded to the idea that, hey, 2001, 9/11, everybody was pointing fingers saying connect the dots. Roll it.
Do you remember what the environment was like in Washington? I do. When people were hauled up in front of Congress and members of Congress were asking questions about how come you didn't know this, that, or the other, and then we start putting, policy in place, legal policy in place to connect the dots, and all of a sudden people were saying, how come you're connecting the dots? And so, Mike, I've heard all that. I've heard all that. My view is that most people around the world, they respect America. And some of them doesn't like me. I understand that. Some of the writers and the, opiners and all that, that's fine. That's part of the deal. But I'm more concerned about the country and how people view the United States of America. They view us as strong, compassionate people who care deeply about the universality of freedom.
Universality of freedom. That doesn't mean we invade where there's not freedom. It means we articulate the vision and we develop a comprehensive plan to advance that agenda, recognizing we are a leader of the free world, not the world's policeman, leader of the free world. So President Obama doesn't share that view, and he made that clear in 2009. B6, roll it.
In America, there's a failure to appreciate Europe's leading role in the world. Instead of celebrating your dynamic union and seeking to partner with you to meet common challenges, there have been times where America has shown arrogance and been dismissive, even derisive. So let me say this as clearly as I can. America is changing.
Transform America, and saying that we're being arrogant by defending ourselves and speaking out and making the case to say with us or against us, I think it's pretty clear. You are either with us or against us when it comes to the support of Islamic terrorism. Now, how we choose to deal with you and remove you, that's our decision. But it's not arrogant. It's protecting freedom. See, I'm not into moral relativism, and I'm certainly not into multiculturalism. I believe cultures that subjugate, mutilate their people versus cultures that liberate and speak to the protection of the minority, like we have in our constitutional republic. Yeah, I believe in that because it's based on a Judeo-Christian foundation. And that's the big mess of this, isn't it? Because we got to talk about Islam and what Islam is. And no doubt it's not a religion of peace. But where we are right now is we've got to recognize that and speak to freedom and say, if you choose to be free, we're going to support you. But we're not going to compromise on the principle of freedom. We're not going to say, you know what, Muslim Brotherhood, you won the election and it was part of the free process, so we're going to support you and we're going to deny your theological roots. No, we're going to support you. No, we're going to criticize you. We're going to hold you to account. When you corrupt the process, we're not going to support you. In fact, we're not going to support you from the day one because we know what you're all about. See, we've got to get honest. When we call Fort Hood workplace violence, it's disgusting. It's an insult. It encourages our enemy, and they say they got us because we can't even talk about what we're fighting against. And then the most recent insult has been, and it's much greater than that, Benghazi. And people say it's a faux scandal. I got to tell you, I know what the Lord in Proverbs says about anger, but I must say this. I think when people say it's a faux scandal, that is so disturbing to me. And I look at the people that are saying that, and number one, I think they are absolutely, wrong. But not only that, what part of your soul do you have to bury to think it's a political scandal when our president, not Democrat, not Republican, but our president, lies to us about the night 4 Americans were slaughtered, murdered, and then sends his UN ambassador out to lie on 5 Sunday shows. Refuses to answer the question, what part of your soul do you have to bury to be a news organization like 60 Minutes and not report the truth? Huh, Steve Croft? Tell me. What part of your soul do you have to bury when you go before Congress and you're asked about something and you say, what difference does it make? What difference does it make? Yeah, I know I sound angry. I even sound bitter, and I am PO'd, peeved off. And make no mistake, I'm not alone. We want answers. And when you present a rally for freedom and deny credentials to people who desire to speak up and acknowledge what has happened and how the mainstream media has done everything they can to bury it, yeah, that chaps Americans too. Because you always talk about relating, you on the left and the elite, the ruling class, you always talk about relating to us. We sit around the kitchen table and budget. No, you don't. Because if you did, you never get in the position you're in now economically. You sit around, you will understand what it means to be in America. You relate to us more. You're blue collar. You recognize us more. You understand what we're going through. You have no ripping idea. Because if you carry the idea for a second that Benghazi is some trumped up scandal, or that we are at war with, or that Fort Hood could be classified as workplace violence, or that man-made disasters, that's what we should be on the lookout for. Or, oh, wait a second, the right wing, that's the concern, rather than Islamic terrorism and the organizations that support them. Yeah, you're out to lunch. You don't have a flipping clue. And shame on you. Because what you're doing is exactly what led to 9/11. It's denying that we are at war. And I think we all need to improve on that. I think we need to acknowledge it. And by the way, we do have allies in the Middle East who happen to be Muslim. But we don't soft sell freedom, and we don't soft sell our idea for defense of liberty, and we don't soft sell our support for Israel. In fact, when people say Israel's what's wrong with the region, we stand up and say, no, it's what's right. So we're not going to ask them to release terrorists and make deals with the people that slaughter them like they slaughter us, because they're the same enemy. Shia, Sunni, maybe different ways to get to the worldwide caliphate, but that's what they want. And so what we are going to do is destroy you. And we're going to do it over time comprehensively. And we're going to humiliate you and put you in the dustbin of history. But we don't have that anymore because we talk about ending wars and not winning wars. No, I haven't served a day in uniform, and I respect the families and the military that do. And I don't take it lightly to put people in harm's way. Absolutely not. I also don't take lightly lying about the war that we are in, the war that they have fought, the gains they have made. Crane Durham's Nothing But Truth. We return now. We're going to return with Ryan Morrow. Ryan Morrow is going to be with us. And as we go to break, I had to say it and get it off my chest. It's on me. Thank you to the Holy Spirit. But bottom line, you can agree, disagree. I'm not saying God's with me or anything like that. I am saying there's a big difference between a Judeo-Christian foundation culture based on that, and it's far superior than one based on Islam. Yeah, but that doesn't mean there are not Muslims who support us and want to be free. It means we've got to tell the truth about our enemy. Nothing but truth. Crane Durham's Nothing But Truth. Ryan Morrow, worldthreats.com, but he is also the national security analyst for the Clarion Project, clarionproject.org. AFR Talk.